Generator comes in the form of a library file. I'm sure a lot of you are used to working with external libraries for this. So I'll load that up. Now, before I get into the actual widgets in the library, what I want to do is look at this first piece here, which is the driver. This is the engine for Generator that kind of communicates with the page to get everything running. So I want to make sure that's on the stage somewhere. It can be anywhere. And actually, when I preview this in the browser, you're not going to see it. So that's good to know. I can also just hide that if I want, get it out of the way, move it off the stage. The important thing is that it's there on the page somewhere. So just to get started, I just want to name a random name on my page. Actually, I want 3 random names, first names. So I'll duplicate that object. When I preview in the browser, I get 3 names. I'm going to refresh. Refresh. I get a new name every time. Okay, so I don't just want a first name. I want a full name. First name and last name. Preview that again. Deborah Davis, Julie Carter, Carolyn Perry. Okay. So let's start building out a bit of a user profile. I don't just want a name, but I want an email address. So I'm going to drag the email address widget from the library onto the stage. There we go. I also want to give this person a profession. So let's drag that one there. Let's give them a phone number as well.
If this was something like a directory or something like that.
Right, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Let's duplicate that a few times, see the results. Okay, so now we have not only random names, but we have random email addresses, professions, phone numbers. Begin to see where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't just want to use text. I want to give this person a face as well. So I drag the user pick widget onto my stage. I'll duplicate that. I'm going to preview the results.
All right.
Yeah, now we're starting to cook.
And where are these pieces of data coming from?
So these are communicating with a site called uifaces.com. And these are free to use. There's an API behind that service that allows different products to different software to communicate with it.
Okay.
So you might notice that the genders for the photos and the names are both random. They don't quite match up. So what I want to do instead is I want to say, so this picture is going to be male. You see what I'm doing? I'm changing the label name of this object. I'm just appending the word male, or in this case, female. And I'll just delete this other one for now. I'm going to do the same thing for the name. I'm going to say female and male for that one. Oh, sorry, I didn't do that quite right. I'm going to drag the...
Oh, we only did it for the pictures, yeah.
The full name male onto the male profile, and the full name female onto the female one. So we have John Doe, and Jane Doe, and those are names that we're probably used to working with as placeholder names in our prototypes, but when I actually preview this in the browser, we're going to get something a bit more realistic. I'm going to drag the full name male onto the male profile, and the full name female onto the female one. So we have John Doe, and Jane Doe, and those are names that we're probably used to working with as placeholder names in our prototypes, but when I actually preview this in the browser, we're going to get something a bit more realistic. Sorry, it's being a bit finicky right now.
That's great.
And you'll notice that these are just regular text objects in Axure. There's nothing, they're not dynamic panels. If I want to change the size, or do anything to them, I can treat them as any other text object in my prototype. And what's useful is to take something like this and convert it to a master item, right? So now I can say this is my profile card. And when I duplicate this, and say I decide for this card that I don't want a square user pick. I want the circular one instead. Updated. Now all of them are updated. And I can preview that in the browser. And there we go.
That's great.
Just to give you a sense of how quickly these can be generated, I'm just going to duplicate these sets a few different number of times. So that's a lot of people, and I'm doing that in seconds.
Right. Yeah, and I can imagine if this was a wireframe that I was creating, and I had to go find, even just think of this, this number of names and this number of different elements.
As we can. Okay. So just keeping on that same path, I'm going to do a few things here. I just want a header. And I want a paragraph. I want two blocks of those. So what these widgets are going to do is they're going to actually auto-generate lorem ipsum text for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go to a lorem ipsum generating site, which is always an extra step.
Or heaven forbid, type.
Or even type, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of typing.
But I also don't like how, in some cases, the text is wrapping a bit here for the second one. I want to keep that to one line. So in order to do that, I'm going to change the label slightly. Right now it's set up to show 7 words. I'm just going to change that to 4. 4 for both. And I can do the same thing with the paragraph. Right now the paragraph is set to 32 words. Let's just see what happens if I change that to 100. Okay.
That's great.
So I'm just going to change that one back to 32 for now. Move that down a bit. And what I want for these blocks is just a random image. So I'm going to have the random photo widget over here. Stretch that out a bit. Make 2. Actually, let's make 4 of these. And then preview them again. Let's give it a second. So we have 4 random images. These images are being pulled from unsplash.com, which is kind of a repository for user submitted photos. And what's nice about Unsplash imagery is that the quality is actually quite high. And it's royalty free, but it doesn't look like typical stock imagery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are really nice.
Let's go back to Axure. So random images are fine for some prototypes. If you just want to communicate that, well, there's actually going to be a photo here and not an illustration of a mountain with the sun behind it, it's useful to just keep that set at random.
Is this really going to be a square with a box?
Exactly, yeah. But what I can also do is say that I want a picture of people. I have categories to choose from. I have people, food, buildings, objects, technology, and nature over here. So I can drag those over onto my page, but I can also just change the label of the ones I've already added. I can say I want this one to be nature, this one down here to be technology.
And those phrases that you're putting in there, those keywords, are those, how are those working?
So these are kind of the set categories within Unsplash. I guess there are about 6 of them. Buildings is another. So those are the categories that you have to work with. And I'll just preview that in the browser, and you can see what it's doing.
Oh, yeah.
So people, nature, technology, someone taking a photo, and buildings. So can refresh that again, see what we get. The nice thing about this engine, the nice thing about Generator is that I can kind of resize these to whatever dimensions I want. And it's not just going to stretch that image. It's going to, Unsplash is going to find an image that best fits within that particular aspect ratio. So it might crop it slightly, but it's not going to distort it in any way. And if I decide, well, I really like this image of flowers, I want to keep that one, I can just copy that, I think, and copy the image straight from my browser and throw it back into Axure. And now that one's going to be baked into my prototype, while the other 3 are going to be random.
Mm-hmm. Right. So if partway through a design you're responding to some client feedback about image sizes or something like that, you don't have to go and resource more.
Yeah, you don't have to do the cropping, which is time-consuming, even to do within Axure itself.
Right.
So we do have these main categories in Unsplash, but we can also even be more specific. I can append a keyword to each of these. So for people, I don't want just a general picture of people. I want a picture of a baby. For the nature photo, I want a picture of a frog. For technology, give me a picture of a phone. And let's be really specific for buildings. I want to see buildings in Toronto. We'll preview that and see what we get. So, well, I mean, it comes close to that those are baby shoes in the first one. The second one was obviously a picture of a frog.
Concept of a baby.
Right. A bit abstract. Picture of a phone, and then, of course, a photo taken in Toronto. I'll just refresh that a couple of times.
There's a baby.
There's a baby. Lovely baby. Okay, so that gives us an idea of how that can work. Now, I know during presentations, clients often do get hung up on the contents of particular photos. So one thing that we've added to Generator is a way to kind of mitigate the risk of people getting hung up on those details. So down here in the masters, you'll see an object called Generator Settings, and this gets added automatically when you open up the library. So for these images, I can say that I want to add FBO stamps. I want to say that they're just for position only. Mm-hmm. And now when I go back to that page, you'll see the FBO watermark.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah. So not that frog, but a frog like
frog
this
in general,
frog.
yes. Yeah. Sometimes it's useful just to blur the images as well, to give people a sense of, well, this might be a picture of a baby.
Mm-hmm. Right, but like this will be a photograph instead of an illustration,
right.
And that kind of thing, without necessarily seeing exactly what it is. That's great.
And then, if I'm concerned about having photos in my prototype at all, if I'm sending out the link to someone in particular, I can just turn those placeholder images off altogether.
And then we're back to the
mountain,
familiar.
But at the same time, we're still getting this randomly generated lorem ipsum text.
Great.
So I'll just go back into settings. Before I move on, I just want a picture. Let's get a nice big picture of a cat in there. There's actually a cat widget in the library.
Well, you've thought of everything.
Yes.
Who doesn't need a cat widget?
It's a lovely cat. Okay. And we can just maybe do a bit of a stress test on that. Oops. Just going to duplicate this a few times.
Wow, yeah.
So a lot of images coming in.
Yeah, so you could really see how if you needed to flesh out an example of a gallery page or some sort of large gallery view of a lot of different products or articles, this would make it really
absolutely
fast.
And again, it's great just to have a sort of an image sourcing engine. It might actually be quicker than going to unsplash.com and trying to find a particular image.
Yeah, it's doing the search for you right here.
Yeah. Okay, I'll just go back to Axure. A few more things we can do. I just want some numbers. This is pretty basic. Three random numbers, please.
I can't really imagine the wireframe need for that, but okay.
Yeah, so we can do a bit more than just...
Lotto.
We can be a bit more specific. We can say that we want a column of this many numbers. And I'm just copying and pasting. This can be any value as long as there's a line break.
Oh, I see.
Generator is going to know to replace that with a number.
Okay.
Okay. But if I want to be even more specific, I can say I want a number between 150 and 2,000. So I'm changing the minimum and maximum values in the label for that object.
Yeah, that would be really great. And you're sort of showing them here as the beginnings of a kind of a table, which
Right, yeah.
that I can start to see how that would be really valuable to be able to just generate a table really quickly without worrying about, typing in values.
Yeah, I mean, one table might be fine, but if you have a page with several tables,
yeah,
it would be more useful. So I can do the same thing with a price widget. I can change the values here. That many rows of prices between $1,000 and $4,000. Just give it a second. There we go.
Even with the waiting, that's faster than typing the tables.
Yeah, I think so.
That's great.
And just one more thing to illustrate here. I just want a news headline for the day. Okay. I want 4 news headlines, and these are being pulled from the BBC.
Oh, okay, yeah. So they're like current headlines.
These are today's headlines,
okay.
Yeah. And I can give the source parameter in the label an actual URL for an RSS feed or an XML feed. So you might have a client that has their own RSS feed for their blog or for their news service. So this is something that you could actually drop into Axure to be able to populate content.
That's great. Then you get something even a little bit more realistic and a little bit. Yeah, that's great.
So in this case, we have show business entertainment headlines from CNN. I'm just going to copy and paste that URL back into there. Here we go. 4 entertainment headlines.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So just going to close some of these tabs here. And just to kind of illustrate how it might look when you put all these things together, I've made duplicates, a lot of duplicates here of different content types. Zoom out. So everything you see here on this page is being created automatically. The warm mix some text, the headlines, the numbers, email addresses, images. And that's coming in pretty fast, you know, maybe a couple hundred photos here.
Yeah, and you can really see how, I mean, I think about usability testing, and when we want to present something to our participants that isn't that abstracted, that isn't just the kind of lines, when you start to have images that are more realistic, you can get much richer results because they're going to simulate the final product a lot better. So
Yeah,
that's great.
So. Absolutely.
Although I know one thing that sometimes happens is people get kind of caught up on the details, right? So if things are not quite, like, you know, we were looking at headlines, if those headlines weren't exactly right, you might actually kind of distract.
Right, or even a phone number. So for a lot of prototypes, it might be fine to have a random phone number, but if you're testing something that's really specific to New York City, for instance, you might want a phone number that actually has the proper area codes.